And welcome once again to another edition of the Truth Hour on this Monday. Welcome to Quantum Leap Television. My name is Johnny Guzman, and as always, today we're going to be joined by our good friend Santos Bonacci from Australia, and a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things going on in our world today, which we're going to share with you and hopefully give you an insight on what's going on for us to collectively finally wake up and make the changes that is so much needed. Today we're going to talk about some ancient groups, Knights Templars, among other groups that are, I would say, have been hurting our existence since the very beginning. Well, let's bring on our good friend Santos Bonacci so he can give us a little bit more details on what's going on with these occult groups. Santos, good evening to you.
Hey Johnny, how are you?
I'm doing great, Santos. I'll tell you what. Here in Ecuador, we had a case where the president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, he sued the newspaper, the local newspaper, El Universo, and mainly he sued them because they were saying some things that were lies. Then they went to court, and the court system proved that he was in the right, and that El Universo, the newspaper, was committed. How would you say that when you lie about someone? And basically, the courts awarded him $40 million and prison for 3 years for the owners of the newspapers. And very well, I would say, a very fair judgment, because they said some very nasty stuff that were lies. There was a big a coup here 2 years ago. They tried to have a coup, and the newspaper declared that President Correa knowingly created this whole mess and ordered the police to shoot on innocent people and all these kinds of things, and they couldn't prove it, so they were found guilty. At this point, the owners of the newspaper asked for asylum in Panama. And after all this whole situation, which was, in my case, justice, because these guys have been putting presidents and taking presidents off and doing basically whatever the hell they want, and very arrogantly. And just today, the president announced that he's going to forgive them, and that there's going to be no jail term for any of them, and there's going to be no money to be paid to him. So that kind of, made me wonder, what's going on in our world. After all this whole situation, and we finally thought that there was going to be some justice done, apparently he's forgiven them. And everything just goes back to normal, and who knows what went on behind closed doors. So I think this is a good topic to lead into what you want to talk about today, about the Knights Templar, and who else is behind the Black Hand. We know that the Vatican is behind behind all these terrible things that are going on in our world, but who else is in bed with these guys from the Vatican, Santos?
Yeah, well, the people who need to be looked at closely are the money people, really. It's always the money. Follow the money. The money's in Switzerland. And the people who look after the Vatican are the Swiss Guard. And the reason being is because that would be their most lucrative business, the Vatican. But they're up in the hills there in Switzerland, the criminals. They have... they don't participate in any other unions. They are a sovereign state. They don't get involved with anything because they are involved in all of it. They run the whole show. I'd like to point the listeners to a great video, and the video is called The Pharaoh Show. The Pharaoh Show. Okay. Please, listeners, do not fail to watch that video, and you will see who the pharaohs of Egypt are that run the world today. You see, the pharaohs are the priests of Amon Ra, and 3,500 years ago, those boys were very rich. They were running a very lucrative busy, money changers, you see. And this is where the money families really got started in Egypt. And of course, this all happened and continued to happen through all of the empires, Assyria, Medo-Persia, etc., all the way to Rome. Rome has inherited the system. That's all. It's the same empire. It's the same fiction. It's a fictional construct. It's all deals with third-party debt collecting, third-party saviors, like, some hero. Back in the Egyptians' time, it was Osiris and Horus, and in the Greeks' time, it was Bacchus and Dionysius, and Hermes and Zeus, etc. But the Romans, they've turned around and they've made, out of all the heroes, they picked Jesus from the sky stories and made it a third-party historical god that can go around demanding that you get saved to him, and that you wait for him to come back to save you, so you postpone your own, salvation and your own goods, and you wait for someone to vicariously come along and save you. Now, so the Romans really, they just changed the names. Isis and, Horus became Isis, Osiris became Jesus, and in this way, they perpetuated the mechanism of control, which is to bring the gods down to earth, basically. So Jesus has been the one that the Knights Templar, the priesthood of Amon Ra, have been running in Switzerland. They've been there. They are the pharaonic bloodline, and they're connected with the Windsor family, the Guelph family, the black nobility family of Italy and Rome, and all of the money families, you see. And when they went to America, you see, they named many of the places in America with a Ka, because Ka is, in their religion, means the soul. That's why you have, Canada, America, Kansas, California, Colorado. And they also had the Ka and Ba. You'll find a lot of Ba. Ka is to live, and Ba means to die. It's the soul. You see, so these Knights Templar, they founded Switzerland in the year 1291. Is that right, or is it 1281? Anyway, let's call it 1291. Now, that was 2 months after the Knights Templar fell. Their last stronghold fell in, I think it was called Akon, a city in the northern regions there of the Middle East. That was their last stronghold. 2 months after that stronghold fell, they set up their empire and called it Swiss. And Swiss is an abbreviated word for Sœurs d'Isis. In French, that means the sisters of Isis. Les Sœurs d'Isis. And they are basically witches and warlocks. And they control the money in the world. These Sœurs d'Isis, who's founded the country named after their witchcraft, Switzerland, and actually in German, Schwesterland means the land of the sisters. Comes from Schwesterland. So it's all about the sisters of Isis. And Paris means the same thing. It means Paraisis. So you've got Isis over in Paris and you've got Isis over in Switzerland, you see. Because it has to do with this very, very powerful feminine witchcraft that they have. and they are the ones that make the money and the wars. They are behind all the wars that have ever been, ever, every war. And they operate out of Switzerland, and they started this business up in Switzerland in 1291. Now, you see, remember in the Bible it says that Pharaoh's army disappeared into the sea. That's the sea of humanity. They have infiltrated every country and nation and region and territory of the planet. And you'll see their symbolism, the pyramid. The pyramid, the obelisk. The obelisk, the ubiquitous obelisk. And all of their symbolisms, you know, the obelisk with the little round ball on the top, that's the world. Or the world underneath, you'll probably see the world underneath the obelisk. But that has to do with world domination. The priests of Ra, of Amon Ra, the pharaohs of Egypt, they run the world. And their symbolism is everywhere. They've got it on the UN army tanks, the US army tanks, NATO army tanks, their logos, their corporate logos. They all have this cross, you know, the cross of the Knights of Malta, for instance. It's just a flattened pyramid.
You know, Santos, that no one asks. Like during all the wars, World War I, World War II, everything was destroyed except Switzerland, where all the money is. You know, nobody ever asked that question. Why isn't that? Why did no one ever invade that little country and take the money if that's where all the money was? You know, and why is it that we deposit all the money then? Why the Swiss banks are so, you know, popular? So, people got to ask themselves these questions. You know, go ahead, Santos.
Yeah, it's a money laundering business, Switzerland. And it's lucrative. All the criminals live there. All the killers, all the hitmen, they have their parties there. They have their orgies there. They have their killing there. Many children go disappearing there. There are many a witch. There's many a witch in that country. And, of course, these are the elite families, unfortunately. The Vicari family and families like this that have been, they've had a history in the Inquisition, and they're still magistrates sitting on cases right now, today. You'll find the same families, magistrate families. They're all there administering justice. They own the prisons. They own the FEMA concentration camps. They own the drug companies, the people trafficking. They deal in dangerous businesses, killing mostly. Petrol, oil. They run, all the churches. They put all the money in the churches, keep them going. The Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, they're all run by killer money. The Catholic Church, of course. These are all fictions and perversions of the Roman Empire that the pharaohs have always been running. The priests of Amon Ra. Funny thing is that in our brain we have an organ called called Amon's horn. You see, because the true stuff, science that they are neglecting to teach is that it's all the characters are inside the body. You see, it's all astrotheology. And this priestcraft, they ran a lucrative business 3,500 years ago when they built the Suez Canal there. It used to be called, in fact, Suez backwards is Zeus. And it used to be called the Canal of Sion, or Zion. That was the the original Zion. It was a canal that would allow for ships to go through, and they would tax the ships as they went through, you see. And so the money families were always there. and they accumulated so much wealth in Egypt. The gold of the 18th dynasty is just incomprehensible. And that gold, a lot of that went to Jerusalem because, you see, the 12 tribes of Israel came from Egypt. And it's not a Middle Eastern thing, it's an Egyptian thing. And I have references for people who want to research that. But they originated in Egypt, and Egypt, of course, ruled the Middle East, you see, all the way over to Babylonia. And these priests, they got to enjoying the job of money changing because it gave them a lot of wealth and a lot of power. And they've been always there underground, and they've always run the show. They've never disappeared. And it's been morphing. I mean, they used to run their show from Thebes and Luxor. Then they went to Babylon, then they went to Pergamon, then they went to Rome. And, of course, these families are spread out all over Europe. There's a big portion of them in Holland, England, Spain, France, Germany. But mostly they do all their good work in Switzerland, They go up there in the hills in that clean little country.
Santos,
and
Santos, let me interrupt you for a moment. You said that most of this stuff came out of Egypt. Now, are the people that are in Egypt today, are they descendants of these people, or these is just a totally different group of people in general? I mean, are these descendants of the ancient Egyptians or no? The people today in Egypt?
Well, yeah, there's a little bit there still left there. There are indigenous people. They've got slightly different colour. But when I'm going to Egypt in October, I'll be speaking with the indigenous wisdom keepers from Egypt, and they are the original people. And the Pyramid Code, which was made by Carmen Butler, beautiful documentary, the Pyramid Code, it has some of the wisdom keepers, the indigenous wisdom keepers in that documentary. Be well worth watching that one by Carmen Butler. And these are the people who have invited me to go down to Egypt to I should say up to Egypt from here, to speak in October. And they're still there, but it's mostly Arabs and Moors that have overtaken Egypt, you see. So, but the original families, the pharaonic bloodlines, they've never disappeared. They've always been there. They will never be removed unless, well, they will. This year they will be. This is the end of the line for them. They've only had like a contractual period to be able to, perpetrate their crimes for a set period. You just can't go doing it forever. They know their contract's running out at the end of this year. It's all over for them because they can't operate, where consciousness is. They've only been able to operate where unconsciousness is, and they've allowed humans to be unconscious and caused them to be unconscious by perpetrating fear and crime on the planet, terrorism. All of it comes from them. It all comes out of Switzerland. Switzerland runs the US, it runs the Zionism, it runs the Vatican. It's the Roman Empire, just on steroids.
Okay, so I like that. The Vatican on steroids. But who is it then that is behind this whole madness? Is it not just one group? It's not only the Vatican, because now we're moving into another group of families that are in Switzerland. Now, where are the Rothschilds in this? Where is the Queen of England in this? Where is the other families that run the show? I mean, so who is like their leader? I mean, is there someone behind them, or it's just that they've said, like in The Godfather, they got together one day in Switzerland and say, yeah, here we're gonna cut the cake, and this is for you, this is for you, this piece is for you, and this piece is for you. But someone has to run the show. Someone has to give orders, huh?
Yeah, yeah. It's a you'll find that Queen Elizabeth is acting as a pharaoh because it's a really it's a feminine concept. I mean, it's the les sœurs d'Isis, the sisters of Isis. It's a witch community, you know, and so, but you've got your boys' club down in Rome too, you see. But you notice that they're all wearing skirts and very unusual, effeminate costumes, because they're all, you know, trying to be these good little sisters of Isis, the most dangerous death cult, you know, that humanity has ever had to face. And they've perpetrated their crimes in a period of ignorance over mankind. But you know, their time's up. Consciousness has arrived. Queen Elizabeth's empire is very, very pharaonic. You know, she got in 52. She was coronated on the Stone of Scone, which, you know, has to do with Jacob's stone that he slept on when he saw the ladder and that goes to heaven. And you know, they take these things literally. You see, where so it appears that these people are, you know, really just intelligent but unconscious, and they rule their kingdom through unconsciousness. You know, it's not conscious. It's not the, you know, the aristocracy of mankind. It's the economic elite of mankind. You know, thugs, pirates that have made their money by killing. And this is the Amon priest craft. They've been doing this for 3,500 years, mostly, probably a little bit longer, but they really peaked, you know, 3,500 years ago, when they started controlling the whole world through their trade and gold and controlling all the minerals and everything like that, and money, creating the concept of money. It's unnatural. These guys are behind it, and it's through money that they've enslaved mankind and stolen all their wealth.
Santos, what kind of witchcraft are you talking about? These sisters of Isis that they practice. I mean, what kind of craft is this? Magic, black magic, however you want to call it. Do they practice? What is it that they do? Can you be more specific on that?
They hate. They kill. They brainwash. They practice the most satanic kind of sorcery, inversive, evil magic purely to gratify their physical pleasures and their physical wants. These people they're pure evil, greedy, purely on the destructive path, and they hate all races. These are the people, the Ku Klux Klan, the Ku Klux Klan comes from there, and it comes from three words. You know how the French have their three words: justice, liberty, and equality. Well, the Swiss, they have their three words too. Now I forget what those words are, but the Ku Klux Klan come from the cowbell clan, because Ku is short for cow, and Klux is to do with clock or the bell. You see, because the Swiss, they have their little cowbells on their cows, you see, so they know where their cows are all the time. Well, this is what the Ku Klux Klan is. It's the cowbell clan, and they're killers. And the cowbells that they put is around your neck. You know, they put the bells around everybody else's neck, and they are the clan that run the Ku Klux Klan. They're in Switzerland. It's all Swiss operated, man. And it's run like machinery, and you'll find that they're all there, all the hitmen, they all fly up there, and they all have their clubs and whatever else they do up there, but there's so much crime in that country, you wouldn't even begin to fathom it. You wouldn't begin. But you'll get an idea when you watch that that YouTube 1.5 hours. It's called The Pharaoh Show, and it's called Alien Predators in Human Appearance.
Okay. Now, yeah, I mean, it seems like Santos, like they make fun of us in a way, it's almost like, they put the army, they put those name tags on, dog tags on them, basically saying you're dogs and you got to do what we say. And they do. And, they do the same thing with the police. And it's so clear, their symbolism, how they just make fun of us. I think sometimes that they sit in a room and they just say, look how stupid these people are, and let's just continue to do it. I was speaking to George Green a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, why is this, how much longer are we going to take this injustice? And he says, you know what? We're still going to take it. And the way they think is that for as long as the people take it, they deserve it. And whatever they get, that's what they deserve. It's cruel, but I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense, we take it, we keep taking it, and if you're taking it, well, you deserve it, But hopefully now from what you're teaching us and showing us, how the consciousness is finally going to wake up, that their days are numbered, and I really want to see that day. Santos, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of this information. It's always interesting. Hold on, don't go anywhere. Okay, and we're back to the Truth Hour. Santos, you just finished giving us the name of this video that you recommend, the Pharaoh Show. Alien Predators, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alien Predators. Well, I'm sure most of our fans are gonna see this, but can you just what does that mean by alien predators? Can you just give us a little bit of what that title means without telling us the whole line of the story?
Well, these will be, this will be just a race on the earth. I mean, there are a few races here. We're not all the same race, you see. We are all, well, of the one consciousness, but different races. This race is very, very, very dangerous. Just a killing reptilian kind of race. So, and they came from Egypt in the dark period, in the dynastic period, because pre-dynastic Egypt was totally a different place. It was a place run on law and justice and peace and divine wisdom and science, but of course that was a later time. You see, dynastic period was where all of this corruption came in, and this inbreeding, where these bloodlines started inbreeding, and there was genetic manipulation, and they started growing dynastic, families. And this period grew many dynasties. You see, the 18th and 19th dynasties. Wow, the kind of money they had. I mean, Egypt was rich in, say, the 4th dynasty, when the supposed pyramids went up, which is a load of rot. The pyramids were built much earlier than that, but nonetheless, that was a rich period. The 4th dynasty. That was probably the last great period. But then all of a sudden, this 18th dynasty comes up out of nowhere. The 17th dynasty was pretty quiet, and you had so you had the old kingdom, the middle kingdom, then the new kingdom comes up. It's the 18th dynasty is the new kingdom. You see, we call that the new kingdom, 3,500 years ago. So you imagine how much older the middle kingdom was and the old kingdom, right? But in between those kingdoms, there were also dynasties, and they were considered to be in what's called the oh goodness, I forget, but intermediary period between kingdoms. You see, you had intermediary periods. Well, the very, very last period of Egypt was when this dark period turned up, where a lot of control started taking place, you see, and dynasties and families started to get bigger and bigger, and richer and richer, and they would intermarry. This is why kings would always, marry their princesses, their daughters, to some prince from a foreign land. And what they did was they joined their money groups, you see. And so a rich family would join this rich family, and all around the Mediterranean, these pharaonic bloodlines were able to, buy up everything and get richer and richer and richer, more and more powerful. So that, it got to the point that one pharaoh sitting on the throne could just utter a sentence, and he'd have all these servants to go around the world and administer his law, so to speak. And this is how Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus, who came from these pharaohs, they're all pharaohs. Remember, Julius Caesar went down to Cleopatra and had children with Cleopatra. I wonder why. Well, because all the elites, these criminal elites, were intermarrying at that time. And so that brought Pharaoh into Rome, you see, and then all of a sudden Rome's the empire. No more republic in Rome. We're not going to have any more of that law stuff and that justice. And sure, the republic was not perfect, but it was a republic, and it's far better, form of government than any empire. That's for sure, run by a bunch of crook families with a lot of money. And these families have always had, they've never let go their wealth. Why would they? And like you said before the break, they laugh at us. And they think if they can get away with it, well, fair enough. And true, they're acting honourably. It's all honour in their system. They don't do anything dishonourable. It's just that they do unlawful things. That's different. See, unconscious creatures, they've got a system of honour. Unconscious people, you see, and they go by honour. So a magistrate will put a 20-year-old boy for speeding. He'll put him in jail because he was speeding in his car, you know. And he'll go home and sleep at night because he did that in honor. You see, these unconscious animals have this system of honor. That's their God. It's a false God. But conscious people who don't kill, who cannot kill, you know, they go by law. They don't hurt nature's laws because they love them. They know them. But unconscious people don't know them. So they go around with this system of honor. You see? That's why the judge wants you to swear on the Bible and their God. It's not the deity that you're swearing upon. You're swearing upon their theocratic Amon Ra. Amon Ra has destroyed the earth with its magic.
Santos, now are these judges aware of all these things, or they are just following what they think it's law, or is it a system that is very clear that they're basing their statutes, no, it's not even laws, on maritime admiralty law, or is it that they're just not conscious of it and they're just thinking that you know, this is the way our law system works, and that's the end of it?
Well, look, they all go around as freemasons and Templars, etc., secret societies, and they all carry the letter G. You know, have you seen the letter G? Yeah, in the middle of their compass and square and all of that. Well, that letter G happens to be the word Golut. And Golut, or Gimel, Golut, means diaspora. The diaspora of the Pharaohs. You see, the Jews refer to the diaspora. That means, you know, being dispersed among the nations. And the Jews, God's people, God's children, Israel, are scattered among the nations. And I will collect my children, Israel, in the time of the end, like a chicken gathers her hens, you know. That's what the scriptures talk about. Well, the Pharaoh's army that disappeared into the sea, that's the sea of humanity. That's the Golut, the letter G that they carry. They're telling you, we are in amongst you. We are the weed in and amongst the wheat, and they are the poison. You see. So if they know, well, that's because they've been initiated to know. But some of them don't know. They're compartmentalized. They wouldn't know. They think some of them think they're practicing law. They're practicing something. Yeah, magical arts, because magistrate comes from magical. And it's black magic. That's why they wear black, and they put sheep's wool. You know, the barristers and the solicitors, they put those woolen wigs on. You see, that's the wolves in sheep's covering. They're telling you. They're telling you that they are the priests of Amon Ra, and they've come to sodomize you. And if you just so much as bend over, they will take advantage. And we don't. And what they tell you to bend over, because they tell you to put your head in the sand like an ostrich. Put your head in the sand. Don't worry, everything's been taken care of. Just take your immunizations, drink your fluoridated water. No problem. Yeah. And then what happens is your bum sticking out in the air. That's so that they can come and sodomize you.
Never thought of it like that, but yeah, that makes so much sense when you start thinking about that, you know. And I mean, down here in Ecuador, the president sort of gave him the name to the elite. He calls them pelucones, right? And he came up with this term because obviously in England, you know, the ones who wore the biggest wigs were, you know, that was their way of showing that they had a lot of money, you know. But I never thought of it like that. And what you're saying, you know, they're hiding and they're doing it right in front of you. And yeah, and why is it that we wear black when we graduate college? You know, we wear those mortarboard hats that look like the Mason's hat. I mean, and the priests wear black and no one asks. And then you know, someone comes out and says, well, it's because black is the mixture of all colors. You know, and they don't understand. You know, they don't even bother to research a little bit. But it's very interesting how they just blatantly do it right in front of us, you know. And yeah, the unconscious people just can't see it, not even question this whole shenanigans, and how they use their symbolism, and how I was watching Jordan Maxwell. He did a document on the dawn of a new day, and where he shows that in all of the emblems of the countries, there's the sun. The sun is rising, the dawn of a new day, because they're preparing for the dawn of a new day. And I started looking at all the escudos, in Spanish, the emblems of the countries in South America, and they all have the sun rising between the two mountains. And I said, this is crazy, and no one has ever even questioned this. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying it just makes so much sense, because down here everyone thinks, oh, that's all European families, but they've also infiltrated here in South America. I mean, you were talking about Switzerland. And obviously, the Cayman Islands it's a smaller Switzerland, I imagine, on this side of the hemisphere. But Panama is probably another Switzerland. All the major banks are there. They created Panama. I don't know if you know that story, but Theodore Roosevelt, they decided that it was too long to go around South America, so they needed to make a little canal, the Panama Canal. But Panama originally belonged to Colombia, and like as always, they armed a few rebels, and they said, hey, listen, you want your own country? Here, we'll give you some arms, fight against Colombia, and, you'll have your own country, but you let us build the canal there. And sure enough, that happened, and they created this new country, Panama, as they did so many countries in the Middle East. And then all of a sudden, Theodore Roosevelt, went to Africa and brought in black slaves, promised them land, money once the canal was finished. And canal was finished, and there was no money, there was no land, there was nothing for them. And today, you go to the area where the Panama Canal is, and in the outskirts, it's all black, and they're all descendants of all those slaves that came from Africa, and just people don't question these things, and then don't, no, just people think, oh, it's Panama, it's a country there where the Panama Canal exists there. It's so much craziness. But I mean, I'm really hoping, Santos, that what you're saying does come true with this waking consciousness that awaits us. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the court system and natural law and common law, Santos. You mentioned a little bit about that. But can you go a little bit into more detail how these families decided now that they stole land, and basically what they did in South America, we're fairly a new continent, right? As they called, every time they referred to the Spanish conquistadors, and conquistadors the conquerors, right? And I say, well, they should be named the invaders, the Spanish invaders, because they didn't come and conquer, or discover the new land. There's people living here, indigenous people. But anyway, they did the same thing here with their law systems, and as I'm finding more of these things here in South America, it's basically the same thing over there, just a little bit different. But can you go a little bit into that, how that whole law system and court system was developed?
Yeah, well, it's all tied into maritime law, which goes back to Rome, you see, and the pirates that run it would be the Ba, or the priests of Amon Ra. You see, the priests of Baal. They are also the priests of Baal. And the priests of Baal are the ones who run the bar in England, the city of London. But the Swiss brand, these guys, they're a different breed altogether. But they all work together, and they are basically the priests of Amon Ra. Really, they all come under the Knights Templar. They all have affiliation to, the Freemasonic symbols and skull and bones and all of that. And what they do is they run canon law, which is maritime commercial law. It's all commerce, all of it. Everything you do with their money is commerce, and that's the whole system runs on commerce. And so when they set up the 13 companies in the newfound land, then they called them the 13 colonies, then they called them the 13 states. Well, those companies that they founded back then, they're just Amun-Ra's businesses. Amun-Ra's, the Pharaohs have many businesses from Switzerland. They were sending Columbus out. They were sending Templars out immediately after 1291, when Switzerland was first founded. I mean, the Templars were known to have reached, Newfoundland in the 13th century. So, and that's a fact. Of course, Christopher Columbus was a Templar family. They had a lot of money. They're all big money families, you see. They're all priests of Ra. It's all this witchcraft and les sœurs d'Isis, the sisters of Isis. Switzerland, the land of the sisters. But you see, that's what they mean by Pharaoh's army disappearing into the sea. The sea is in your courts, Admiralty Sea. You see, so the Ra, the magistrate, and by the way, magistrate, as I said, comes from magic, but it also comes from Maat, and Maat is the goddess of justice from Egypt. So they're telling you, that it's an old Egyptian religion of control. They're telling you that, and it's a fictional system, and it runs on you contracting with them by giving them a name. That all they want is your name. That's all they need. If you've got a name registered with them on their system, they own you. They can reel you into court like you're reeling a fish, and with the summons, and you go there, and you've got to go and say, yes, Your Honour, my name is Santos Bonacci, Your Honour. Thank you very much. 10 years jail. Thank you, because that's the benefit you get from having the name. You get a lot of benefits, lots of benefits, with that name that you have registered on that death certificate. They're not interested in justice, my friend. They're not about justice, and they tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty merciful. They tell you that we are pirates and we just want to sodomize you, steal your money, rape you, kill you, murder you. They tell you.
Yeah.
They're not backward.
You know that
they have their disclosure. They have their legal out.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, I remember when I was living in the States, and the times that I went to court, I never won. And even with a lawyer, you never win. But, it's funny that you said this about the priest of Amon-Ra. I mean, they're telling us again. That silly movie with the mummy, the first movie, The Mummy, where they're showing you, now I just thought about this, the guy the priest, the head priest, who's like the witch doctor there, all of a sudden falls in love with the Pharaoh's wife, and then he's condemned to an eternal life of suffering. But they mention in there the priests of Amon-Ra. Now that you're mentioning this, and eventually this guy comes out and he's going to retake the world. They're telling us. Hollywood's always tell us, the whole story is just that we're so contaminated, I guess, that we can't see the truth. They put it in a very artistic way, but you just reminded me about that, the priest of Amon-Ra. Santos, when you mentioned this about the maritime admiralty law and there's no justice, I mean, there's a lot of people in the States, in Canada, in Australia that are called sovereigns. And I was speaking to a gentleman, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. He's from Canada. His name is David Lindsay. He told me something very interesting. He says, Johnny, there's a lot of people that call themselves sovereigns and they're out of the system. But he goes, I know very few, if none, that they get away with not paying property tax. Eventually, they might not pay for 2 years, 3 years, but eventually they get them. And to a certain extent, they think that they are sovereign, but they're not sovereigns. Can you comment on that? Do you know people that are basically have just gone off the grid and the government has just left them alone? They don't pay property tax. They don't pay any income tax. They don't pay sales tax. Do you know
Oh
any?
yeah, of course. Oh yeah. Well, I don't. I don't pay tax. I don't pay electricity and utilities. That's already prepaid. That's already. Besides, a true sovereign doesn't do commerce. Remember, commerce. A sovereign doesn't go to court. A true sovereign, a free man, what for? That's their business. So, so they can't require taxes from a free man. If you pay taxes, you're a slave. That proves you're a slave because you have to pay. So there's no law saying you have to pay taxes either. You see, this is how stupid people are. The IRS comes along and says, "We are the IRS. You've got to give us some money." And people go, "Oh, okay, there you go." You see, Greece is getting smart now. They've started a worldwide organization and it's called Don't Pay. And people are walking through, they are walking through, collection gates, not paying. They get on the train and don't pay, and the movement is growing by the day. Why should we pay? Air is free, food is free, it's all free. What's there to pay for? Money is an artificial construct, and it's useless because it's unless, of course, there's no interest attached to it, then it's a great idea to exchange pieces of money. I mean, I'd rather carry pieces of paper with me to go overseas than, a whole bunch of chickens and a few dozen eggs, so I can go bartering my way, through with hotels and getting food and everything like that. It's great like that. But only people don't realize that it is all supercharged with interest, which means enslavement. So, don't pay. I think that's, go for it. Non-compliance, don't pay. Man, it's not going to turn to chaos. That's the way the system was designed. People who are hooked into the system, by the way, if you want to stay in the system and not lose the name to win the game, if you want to keep your birth certificate, well, then you shouldn't be paying utilities because the utility companies are already taking their money from your SESTWI account. They're just sending you a statement to tell you how much you've used, and they want you to sign on the back to verify that it's you so that they can access that money lawfully, but they do anyway. Every time you pay cash for your electricity bill, the electricity company gets double. They double dip. So this is how, of course they laugh at us because we're pretty stupid. Electricity's free, comes from the ground, it comes from free stuff. And as for the people who panic and think, oh yes, but if you don't pay your electricity bills, then all those people who've got jobs are just over broke. That's what jobs are. And jobs are slavery, people. We came here not to do jobs. We came here to work. Work is different to jobs. Jobs are from the Swiss and from the Romans, the pharaohs of Amon Ra, the enslavers of the mammalian race. So we can just use good currency, our word from now on. That'll do. Our own word and love and energy. That's the best currency there is. None of their fictional money that's been around for 3,500 years, destroying and ravaging the earth.
Santos, this gentleman said something very interesting. He said over in the area where they live in Canada, he says the group of small businesses, they decided that they were not going to collect sales tax from the people. So let's say someone came in and wanted to buy a computer, they could buy the computer, but they were not going to charge them sales tax. And they got together and they told the government that they were not going to collect their sales tax. In other words, why should we do your work and not get paid for it? So I said, that's fantastic. He says, and the people that are waking up to this, says they're going to, we're telling them, don't shop in those stores, go shop in these stores because we don't collect sales tax. The government doesn't want to pay us, so we're not going to collect it. We're not going to do their work for free. It sort of reminds me as well with like Facebook. Facebook makes money on all these people with their information and all their stuff, but the people don't make any money. Why don't they get a piece of the action here? But it's all a big con. It's all a big game. And I think it's time to wake up, and again, these informations are important because it makes you think, every time that we present information to our audience that, there's other ways, There's look at life differently. Look at how the money system works. Look at how our court systems work. Why do we have to, pay income tax? Why do we have to pay sales tax? I mean, when I lived in the States, I mean, I wanted to fix my windows, change the windows. I had to go get a permit to ask the city to allow me to change my windows. And never mind if I wanted to build a deck, that was like a whole nightmare, and if you were an inch, out of their statutes, their measurements, they made you knock the whole thing down, and it's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, I always say, Santos, if you want to get married to someone, why do you ask? You got to ask permission of the state. You got to get a marriage license. What is that all about? It's a crazy life.
It's all to support the crime of the pharaohs. The pharaohs, it's all for their businesses. We're just supporting them. That's all we're doing. And continuing the wars. And the wars will continue as long as those pharaohs are eating caviar, drinking Cuban champagne, smoking Cuban cigarettes in their palaces in Switzerland and Rome and London and DC, all of the children of the pharaohs. Time's up. Different world now. Goodbye. It's all over for them. It's all over for these clowns in their costumes and their Knights of Malta badges and crosses and all of this shit they put on, all this paraphernalia, and they think they're gods on earth. The Queen Elizabeth, how many medals and stuff do you want to walk around with? What are those medals for? Do they have any value in the eyes of God, in the eyes of the divinity? Not the God they worship, the theocratic buffoon with the beard that says you can't, drink tea, you can't dance, you can't smoke cannabis, you can't have sex with contraceptives, etc., and all of that confused lot, the churchgoers. They're all bewitched by the priests of Amon. When you go to church, rest assured, mate, that they are not real pastors. In fact, they tell you who they worship in Jesus' name. Amen. Amon.
Well, that's going to do it for us, Santos. Thank you once again for being here with us and giving us so much information that's so valuable. Any last comments that you would like to say before we conclude the show, Santos?
Yeah, please watch the video, the Pharaoh Show. Very, very informative. Pretty much ties in a lot of the loose information out there, joins a lot of dots, and you will not be disappointed. You will open your eyes as to how the system really, really works.
Okay, and also your website, Santos, the universaltruthschool.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we recommend that you go into Santos' website and look at all his videos. A lot of information there, a lot of great information, valuable information that will help you continue in this journey of waking up, because we've been sleeping for so long. Like that line in the Matrix when I think it's the second movie where they're down in Zion, right, in the city, and the old elder is walking around, and Neo comes out and says, "Why aren't you sleeping?" He goes, "Well, I've been sleeping most of my life, so I don't like to sleep that much anymore." But yeah, I think it's time for us to look at the world a little different, with different eyes, and wake up. Santos, my friend, thank you very much for being with us. I will see you on Wednesday for Conspiraciones, la hora de la verdad. So we continue to do this in Spanish on Wednesday. Thank you, Santos.
Thank you very much, Johnny.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for us, folks. We will see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Where we bring you Conspiraciones, la hora de la verdad, Spanish show of the Truth Hour. And also don't forget to go into our Facebook, and you can find us there at qlpmultimedia@gmail.com. You can join our group there, and you can keep up to date all the stuff that we're doing here at Quantum Leap Television, and all of our guests that are coming to our show, and how a lot of people are starting to understand this message that we're bringing across. Thank you once again for being here with us. My name is Johnny Guzman. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Ciao.